I used to think the safest place to be watched was at the gym because there were cameras everywhere. Cameras by the front door, cameras over the weight floor, cameras facing the parking lot, a little monitor behind the desk showing almost every corner. But cameras do not stop someone from learning your routine. They only record what happens after it is already too late. This happened when I was 21. I was in college during the day and worked closing shifts at a restaurant 4 nights a week. By the time I got off work, it was usually close to 11, so I joined a small 24-hour gym in a suburban strip mall. It sat between a dry cleaner and a nail salon, with a pizza place at the end of the row. In winter, the whole strip mall felt abandoned after dark. The parking lot lights were weak and yellow, and some of them flickered when it was windy. Inside, the gym felt safe. It was bright, smelled like cleaner, and had mirrors everywhere. After 10 at night, you needed a keycard to get in. My routine was simple. Treadmill, leg press, cables, dumbbells, stretching, locker room, then straight to my car. That was why I noticed the new man. The first night I saw him, he was on a machine near the leg press. He looked normal, maybe late 30s. Grey hoodie, dark sweatpants, short hair. He was just close. The gym was almost empty, so it felt strange that he picked the machine right beside mine. But I told myself he was probably doing the same workout. Maybe he was new and did not know gym etiquette. When I finished the leg press and walked to the cable machine, he moved too. When I moved to the dumbbells, he came there a minute later. He picked up a pair of weights and stood in front of the mirror doing slow curls. His eyes were not on himself. They were on my side of the mirror. I left early that night. In my car, I felt embarrassed for being scared. I remember thinking, "You are in a bright gym with cameras and people around. Stop making everything weird." A few nights later, I saw him again. He was already inside when I arrived, walking slowly between machines like he was choosing one. When I scanned my card and came in, he looked down at his phone. I decided to change my routine, mostly to prove to myself that I was imagining it. Instead of starting on the treadmill, I went straight to the dumbbells. I chose a bench in the back corner where I could see most of the gym in the mirror. Within 2 minutes, he left the machine he was using and came to the dumbbell section. That was the first time my stomach really dropped. He did not even pretend well. He picked up a dumbbell, set it back down, checked his phone, then leaned against the rack. Every time I looked in the mirror, he had shifted just enough to see me. I remember the sound of his shoes more than anything. Not loud, just that soft rubber squeak every time he moved after I moved. I still did not say anything. You do not want to accuse someone and be wrong. You do not want to look dramatic. So you keep giving the other person chances to be harmless. After that, I started testing it quietly. Another night, I walked toward the women's locker room, then turned around before going in. He had been near the free weights, but when I turned back, he was standing near the hallway, pretending to read something on the wall. Then he started talking to me. The first time, it was just, "You come here pretty late." The third time was what made me stop pretending. I was wiping down a mat when he walked past and said, very casually, "You always park in the same spot, right?" I looked up at him and he smiled like he had commented on the weather. I did not answer. I just grabbed my bag and walked to the locker room with my heart beating in my throat. After that, I started parking in different places. Near the front door one night, closer to the nail salon the next. Once I parked near the pizza place, even though it made the walk longer. Somehow when I came out, his car was always close. It was an older dark sedan. If I parked near the front, it would be 2 rows away. If I parked near the pizza place, it would be near the end of the lot. I told the front desk employee once that a man was making me uncomfortable. He asked if the man had said anything threatening. I said no, but he kept following me around. The employee looked toward the gym floor, But the man was not there that night. Then he said, "Just let me know if he bothers you again." The last night I went there, it was freezing outside. The front windows were fogged along the bottom, and the parking lot looked almost empty. I got there around 11:30. The man in the grey hoodie came in about 10 minutes after me. I saw his reflection before I saw him directly. That night, I cut everything short. I did 5 minutes on the treadmill, one quick round on cables, then grabbed my bag and went to the women's locker room. The locker room was small. 3 rows of lockers, 2 sinks, 2 bathroom stalls, and a narrow bench in the middle. The main door did not lock from the inside, but the bathroom stalls did. I stood there quietly for a second, listening. At first, all I heard was the muffled gym music and the low hum of the heater. Then I heard the hallway door open. There was a short hallway outside the locker rooms that led to the bathrooms and a storage closet. The door had a heavy hinge and it always made a soft sucking sound when it closed. I looked down. A shadow stopped outside the women's locker room door. It did not pass by. It stopped. I held my breath, hoping it was someone who had taken a wrong turn. Then, beneath the gap at the bottom of the door, something black slowly slid into view. It was a phone. The camera side was angled upward. For 1 second, I could not move. Then I grabbed my metal water bottle from my bag and slammed it as hard as I could against the door. The phone jerked back instantly. I screamed, "Get away from the door!" There was quick movement outside. Then the hallway door opened and closed. I ran into a bathroom stall, locked it, and called the front desk. No answer. I called again. No answer. Then I called my brother. While I waited, I stood on the toilet seat so my feet would not show under the stall. I know that sounds ridiculous, but I was terrified he might come back and look under. When my brother arrived, he came inside yelling my name. I ran out of the stall and straight to him. The front desk employee finally came out of the office looking confused. My brother walked me out while calling the police. The parking lot looked empty at first. Then we saw the dark sedan parked a few spaces from my car, engine off, windows dark. As we got closer, a shape suddenly sat up in the driver's seat. He had been lying down. My brother yelled and the sedan started immediately. It backed out fast and drove toward the exit without headlights for the first few seconds. By the time the police arrived, he was gone. The gym manager reviewed the footage the next day. The man had not been scanning a keycard. He had been waiting outside and slipping in behind other members when they opened the door. The cameras showed he only came in on nights I was there. The parking lot footage was worse. On at least 3 different nights, he had stood near my car while I was inside. He looked through the windows. Once he tried the passenger door handle. Another time, he crouched near the rear tire, though the footage was too grainy to show what he was doing. They never found out who he was, at least not that anyone told me. I cancelled my membership that same week. By the time you are sure, the person watching you already knows too much. I stopped going to that gym, but for weeks afterward, I still checked under my car before getting in. And even now, whenever I pass mirrors, I do not just look at myself. I look at who is looking back.
The first time I heard someone whisper my name in the sauna, I thought it was steam playing tricks on me. The second time, I knew the voice was coming from inside the room, but I still could not see anyone. This happened a little over 2 years ago, when I was 28. I had just started an office job that kept me sitting for almost 9 hours a day, and my health was starting to catch up with me. I was overweight, tired all the time, and stressed in a way that made my chest feel tight even when nothing was happening. After one doctor's appointment, my doctor told me, in a polite but serious way, that I needed to start taking care of myself before it became harder to fix later. So I joined a gym. Not one of those hardcore bodybuilding gyms. This was a mid-range commercial gym attached to a small indoor pool area. It had bright machines upstairs, a front desk near the entrance, and downstairs there was a men's locker room with showers, lockers, and a sauna at the far end. The sauna was the reason I picked that place. I was not confident in the gym at all. I did not know how half the machines worked, and I always felt like people could tell I was new. So I started going late around 9:30 at night, when the place was almost empty and close to closing. My routine became simple. I did 20 minutes on the treadmill, a few machines upstairs, then went downstairs to shower. After that, I sat in the sauna for 10 minutes, changed, and drove home. The sauna became my reward. It was quiet, hot, and usually empty. I would sit there with my towel around my shoulders, eyes half closed, letting the heat make me feel like I had done something good for myself. The first strange thing happened on a Wednesday night. I was sitting alone in the sauna, facing the glass door. The wooden benches were damp from steam, and the light inside was dim and orange. The air was so thick that everything looked slightly blurred. I heard a clicking sound behind me, not loud, just a small, dry click. Then another one. It sounded like fingernails tapping wood, or maybe a small piece of metal touching the wall from the other side. I turned around and looked at the wooden panels behind me. Nothing moved. The sauna heater hissed in the corner, and the steam made my own breathing sound louder than it was. I sat there for maybe another 30 seconds listening. Click, click. I left before my 10 minutes were up. When I got dressed, I actually laughed at myself. I told myself it was probably pipes, or the heater, or the wood expanding from the heat. I did not know what saunas were supposed to sound like. I was new to the whole gym thing, so everything felt unfamiliar. For the next few nights, nothing happened. Then, on Monday, I heard it again. I was in the sauna alone, sitting in my usual spot. The gym was closing in about 20 minutes, and the locker room had that hollow sound it gets when everyone else has already left. No voices, no lockers slamming, just water dripping somewhere near the showers. The clicking started behind me again. I turned my head and said, "Hello?" I felt stupid the second I said it. Then I heard a whisper. At first I thought it was air escaping from the heater, just that thin, soft sound steam makes when it pushes through a vent. Then it said my name, my actual first name. I froze. I had not spoken to anyone in that locker room. I did not know anyone at that gym. The only place my name was visible was on my work badge, which I sometimes clipped to the outside pocket of my gym bag because I came straight from the office. My bag was sitting outside the sauna on the bench near the lockers. I stood up so fast my foot slipped on the wet floor. I grabbed my towel, pushed the sauna door open, and stepped out into the locker room. No one was there. The rows of lockers were empty. The showers were quiet. The bathroom stalls were open. I walked to the end of the room and looked around the corner near the maintenance closet beside the sauna. Nothing. But my gym bag had been moved. I always left it on the bench closest to the shower entrance. That night, it was on the bench near the sauna door. My towel, the one I had used before going in, was folded neatly on top of it. I knew I had not folded it. Then I heard water running. One of the showers was on. It was the same shower I had used earlier. I knew because the hook outside still had the broken plastic edge where I had hung my towel. I stared at the stream of water hitting the tile, trying to make sense of it. Maybe I had forgotten to turn it off. Maybe the handle was loose. Maybe some other guy had come in while I was in the sauna and I had not heard him. I wanted one of those explanations to feel true. I got dressed faster than I ever had and left without drying my hair properly. The next night, I almost did not go. But skipping the gym after 2 weird moments felt like admitting I was scared of a room. So I went. But I promised myself I would avoid the sauna. Everything upstairs was normal. The treadmill, the machines, the bright lights, a guy doing cable rows with headphones in, a woman filling her water bottle near the pool entrance. Downstairs felt different. The men's locker room was too quiet. I showered quickly and kept looking through the gap in the shower curtain. While I was changing, I heard the sauna door creak behind me. I turned around. The sauna door was open a few inches. No one came out. It just stayed there, slightly open, letting a slow wave of heat spill into the locker room. I did not even finish putting my socks on. I shoved them into my bag and walked upstairs to the front desk. The staff member there was young, maybe 19. He listened, then nodded like he had heard complaints before. He said the sauna door had a bad latch and sometimes opened because of air pressure. He was calm enough that I felt embarrassed again. I said, "Are you sure no one else is downstairs?" He checked something on the computer and said there were only a few members still inside, all upstairs. I almost accepted it. I really did. But when I went back down to grab the bottle I had left by my locker, I saw muddy shoe prints on the tile. They were not coming from the main locker room entrance. They started at the maintenance closet beside the sauna. The prints were dark and wet, like someone had stepped through mud outside and tracked it across the locker room floor. They led directly to the bench where my bag had been moved the night before. I stared at the closet door. It was closed, but not fully. There was a thin black line between the door and the frame. I left my bottle there and walked back upstairs without making any noise. For 3 days, I stayed away from the gym. Then I convinced myself I was overreacting. I told myself I had paid for the membership. I told myself the staff knew about the door. I told myself muddy prints could have come from a cleaner or a maintenance guy. That Friday night, I went back. I finished my workout quickly and decided to skip both the sauna and the shower. I would just change my shoes, grab my bag, and leave. The locker room was empty when I went downstairs. My footsteps sounded too loud on the tile. Somewhere near the pool, a door closed with a dull thud. I opened my locker, pulled out my hoodie, and heard the lights buzz above me. Then everything went dark. For 1 second, it was completely black. Then the emergency lights came on. Dim red light filled the locker room, turning the mirrors dark and the wet floor shiny. I stood there holding my hoodie, unable to move. Behind me, the maintenance closet door opened. I heard it clearly. A slow creak. Then bare feet slapped against the wet tile. Not shoes, bare feet. I grabbed my phone and ran toward the main locker room exit, but when I pushed the door, it hit something heavy. I pushed harder. It opened only a few inches. Through the gap, I could see the metal edge of a cleaning cart, blocking it from the outside. I backed away. The footsteps were coming closer. I slipped into the nearest shower stall and pulled the curtain almost closed. My shoes were still in my hand, and my bare feet were on the cold tile. I held my phone against my chest, afraid the screen light would show through the curtain. The footsteps passed the first shower, then the second. The person stopped outside mine. I could see a shadow through the curtain. Then the whisper came again. My name. This time it sounded different. Slow, mocking, like whoever it was had been waiting to say it again. I covered my mouth with my hand. My phone was buzzing because my thumb had accidentally pressed the side button, but I was too scared to look down. The shadow moved away. The footsteps went toward the sauna. I waited until I heard the sauna door creak open. Then I ran. I did not go for the main door. I ran straight toward the emergency exit at the far end near the pool hallway. I shoved it open with my shoulder. The alarm screamed. Cold air hit me so hard I almost fell. I ran into the side alley wearing only gym shorts, a hoodie, and no socks. My shoes were still in my hand. The pavement was freezing, and I kept running until I reached the front of the building, where 2 staff members were already coming outside because of the alarm. I could barely explain what happened. Police came. The manager came. They checked the locker room, the sauna, and the maintenance closet. Behind the closet, they found a small crawlspace access panel. It was partly hidden behind stacked cleaning supplies. Inside were old towels, snack wrappers, a stolen membership card, and several printed workout schedules from the front desk. They also found my work badge. I had thought I lost it weeks earlier. The person was never caught. The gym said very little about it. A paper sign went up on the sauna door that said it was closed for repairs. Then, a month later, the sauna was just gone from the list of amenities. I still go to the gym now, but I use a different one. I do not shower there. I do not use locker rooms unless I have to, and I always check corners before putting my bag down. But the habit I hate the most is this: I still do not sit with my back to a wall. Because now I know that sometimes a wall is not really a wall. Sometimes someone is behind it, learning your name.
The worst mistake I made was thinking he was just doing his job. Because when someone at a gym asks about your routine, your address, your sleep, and your relationship status, it can sound professional. It can sound like they are trying to help, until they start using all of it against you. This happened about a year after my divorce. I was 35, raising my daughter mostly on my own, and trying to act like I was handling everything better than I was. I was not. I was anxious all the time. I had lost confidence in ways I did not know how to explain. I avoided mirrors. I wore oversized shirts. I hated running into people who knew me before because they always had that look on their face, like they were trying to figure out how much of me had changed. One afternoon, I saw a promotion for a gym near my office. It was one of those clean, upscale gyms with glass walls, soft lighting, a smoothie bar, and people at the front desk who smiled too much. The offer came with 3 free personal training sessions, so I signed up. I told myself it was not about looking a certain way. I just wanted to feel strong again. My trainer's name was Marcus. At first, he was exactly what I thought I needed. He was confident without being rude, friendly without being pushy, and he seemed to know how to talk to someone who was nervous. During the first assessment, he asked about my work schedule, my sleep, old injuries, stress, eating habits, and what made me uncomfortable in gyms. I told him too much. I told him I had knee pain from an old fall. I told him I usually came after work because my daughter stayed with my sister on those nights. I told him I did not like walking alone in parking garages. I even mentioned that I was recently divorced because he asked what made me want to start now. He listened like every answer mattered. And honestly, at that point in my life, being listened to felt nice. The gym had a main floor with machines and free weights, a row of private training rooms along one side, and a small office area behind the front desk. The personal training studio had no windows, just mirrors, rubber flooring, and a door that closed softly behind you. Marcus remembered everything. If my knee hurt, he adjusted the workout. If I looked tired, he lowered the weight. When I said I had trouble eating enough protein, he wrote down easy meals for me. By the second session, I trusted him. That was why I did not react strongly the first time something felt off. I had planned to go to the gym on a Tuesday night, but after 10 minutes on the treadmill, I felt exhausted and left. I had not told Marcus I was coming. I had not booked a session. I just scanned my key card, walked in, changed my mind, and went home. The next day during our session, he said, "You disappeared on me last night." I looked at him and laughed awkwardly. "What?" He smiled and said, "I saw your check-in. You can't disappear on me like that." Then he laughed too, like it was a joke. I asked if trainers could see when members checked in, and he shrugged. He said, "Only if we're keeping track. Accountability, remember?" I told myself it was probably normal. Maybe trainers had access to member attendance. Maybe he was just trying to motivate me. He had been helpful, and I did not want to seem difficult or ungrateful. After the third free session, he sat me down in the assessment room and went over training packages. They were expensive, much more than I expected. I told him I needed to think about it. His face changed for only a second, but I saw it. The warmth went flat. Then he leaned back and said, "You're finally building momentum. This is usually where people quit and go back to old habits." I said I was not quitting. I just could not afford the package right then. He nodded, but he did not look convinced. After that, he started appearing near me when I worked out alone. If I was on the leg press, he would walk by and correct my form without me asking. If I picked up dumbbells, he would stand a few feet away and say, "Too heavy," or "You're rushing." Once I was stretching on a mat and he stood over me and said, "You're throwing away progress." I tried to be polite, but I started planning my workouts around avoiding him. Then I got the text. It came from an unknown number at 9:48 p.m., just as I was getting into my car in the parking garage. "You didn't stretch after legs today." I sat there with my keys in my hand, staring at the screen. I had not given Marcus my personal number, at least not directly. I knew the gym had it on my membership form, but I had never told him he could text me. The garage was quiet except for the hum of the overhead lights and the distant sound of a car starting on another level. I looked around before locking my doors. The next day, I asked the front desk if trainers were allowed to text clients from personal numbers. The woman at the desk hesitated before answering. Then she said, "Only if the client gives permission." I told her I never had. She asked who it was. When I said Marcus, her expression tightened just a little. Not enough to mean anything for sure, but enough that I noticed. Later that evening, Marcus found me near the cable machine. He said, "You could have just asked me." I said, "I don't want text from a personal number." He looked hurt, like I had insulted him. "You put your number on the intake form." "For the gym," I said. "Not for you." He stepped closer and lowered his voice. "I'm trying to keep you from quitting on yourself." After that, it got worse. He would be standing by the smoothie bar when I walked in, even if he did not have a client. He would appear outside the training studio while I worked out alone. Once, when I reached my car in the garage, he was leaning against a pillar near the elevators, scrolling on his phone. He looked up and said, "See, this is why you shouldn't walk down here alone." I forced a laugh and kept walking. A week later, I saw him outside my apartment building. I was coming back from the grocery store with 2 bags in my hands when I noticed him near the entrance, wearing a black jacket and gym pants. He smiled like seeing me there was normal. He said, "Small world. I was in the area." I did not ask why. I just said I had to get upstairs because my daughter was waiting. His smile faded when I mentioned her. Then he said, "You have a lot on your plate. You need someone keeping an eye on you." I reported it to the gym the next day. The manager was polite, but I could tell she was trying to keep it contained. She said Marcus was passionate about client results and sometimes came across too intense. She promised to speak with him. For a few days, he left me alone. Then came the night everything finally became clear. I finished a short workout and went into the private stretching room. It was a small, windowless room at the end of the training area. I thought it was empty, so I went in to stretch my legs and calm down before leaving. About 2 minutes later, Marcus walked in and closed the door behind him. I stood up right away. He raised both hands and said, "Relax. I just want to talk without distractions." I said, "I'm done talking." I moved toward the door, and he stepped in front of it. Not aggressively, not with a raised fist, just enough that I could not leave without pushing past him. He said, "You're making this into something it isn't." My mouth went dry. I could hear music from the main gym floor, muffled through the wall. People were close enough that I should have felt safe, but the room suddenly felt sealed off. I told him to move. He sighed, like I was disappointing him again. Then he said, "You know, your daughter's school is only 8 minutes from here. You should be more careful with who you upset." Everything in me went cold. I had never told him my daughter's school. For a second, I wanted to scream, but something in my brain told me not to. He was standing too close to the door, and I knew if I panicked, he would use it against me. So I made my voice softer. I said, "You're right. I'm sorry. I've just been scared." His expression changed. He liked that. I kept going. I told him I did need structure. I told him maybe I had reacted badly because everything after the divorce made me defensive. I said I wanted to restart training next week, but I felt dizzy and needed water first. He studied my face for a second. Then he stepped aside, just a little. That was all I needed. I ran. I ran past the training studio, past the machines, past the front desk. I heard him behind me, not running at first, just walking fast. Then he called out loudly, "She's having a panic attack. Someone help her." That scared me more than if he had shouted, because he sounded calm, professional, like he was still in control of the story. I did not stop at the desk. I ran through the lobby and out to the valet area in front of the building, where there were cameras, cars, and 2 attendants in red jackets. Only then did I call my brother. Then I called the police. Marcus left before the officers arrived. At first, the gym tried to call it a misunderstanding. They said there was no camera inside the stretching room, so they could not confirm exactly what happened. They said Marcus denied blocking the door. I made a post in a local women's group, warning people without naming the gym at first. That was how another woman found me. She messaged me and said Marcus had trained her the year before. After she stopped buying sessions, he texted her for months. He commented on her workouts, her clothes, her schedule, even when she brought her boyfriend to the gym. When police pushed harder, the gym finally checked his office computer. That was when they found the spreadsheet. It had notes on several female clients, workout times, car models, relationship status, work schedules, personal fears, family details. One column was labeled motivation triggers. My name was there. So was my daughter's school. I never went back to that gym. For a long time, I blamed myself for answering his questions. But now I understand that he knew exactly how to make control sound like care. I joined that gym to feel stronger, but the first real strength I found was leaving while pretending I was not afraid.
I used to think changing my body required consistency. Same gym, same time, same parking spot, same routine. It took me one morning to realize consistency can also make you easy to find. This happened late last autumn, when I was 29. I was working as a delivery driver at the time, and my schedule was all over the place. Some days I started at 7 in the morning. Other days I was still dropping packages after dark, eating gas station food in my van and promising myself I would get my life together next week. Eventually I got tired of feeling tired. I joined a cheap neighborhood gym in an industrial area because it was open early and close to my first delivery zone. It was not fancy. Half the machines had cracked padding, the lockers were dented, and the bathrooms always smelled like bleach over old damp towels. But it had free weights, a side entrance for early members, and almost no people before sunrise. That was enough for me. My routine became the one thing in my life that did not change. I would arrive around 4:45 in the morning, park behind the gym, scan in through the side door, lift in the back free weight room, use the bathroom, drink a protein shake in my car, and leave by 6. The front desk was unmanned until 6, but I did not care. I liked the quiet. Usually the only other person there was an older man who walked on the treadmill while watching news on his phone. Sometimes a cleaner came through with a mop bucket and headphones. The gym sat behind a row of warehouses and repair shops. At that hour, nothing around it was open. The parking lot behind the building had 3 lights, but only 2 worked. Beyond the lot was a loading area with dumpsters and a chain-link fence. It felt ugly, but familiar. The first morning, I noticed the van. It was parked at the far edge of the lot. White cargo van. No markings, lights off. I remember noticing it because the lot was usually empty except for my car and sometimes the older man's blue pickup. I parked in my usual spot near the side entrance and sat for a second, finishing the last of my coffee. As I got out, I saw someone sitting in the passenger seat of the van. They turned their head away quickly. It was so fast that I almost questioned whether I had seen it at all. I told myself it was probably nothing. The gym was in an industrial area. Vans were common. Maybe they were delivery workers waiting for a warehouse to open. Maybe someone was sleeping in their vehicle. I scanned into the gym and forgot about it after my first set. The next morning, the same van was there again. This time, it was closer to the side entrance. I slowed down when I saw it, but I did not stop. I remember feeling annoyed with myself for being nervous. It was just a van. People parked places. Not everything meant something. As I walked past it, the sliding door opened about 2 inches. Then it shut again. I did not see a face, just that dark line of space opening and closing. Inside the gym, the older man was not on the treadmill. That bothered me more than I expected. I did not know him, but his presence had become part of the place. Without him, the building felt too still. The fluorescent lights hummed above the machines, and the music playing through the speakers sounded lower than usual, almost like it was coming from another room. I went to the free weight area anyway. The free weight room was in the back, past a narrow hallway that led to the bathrooms. There was an old security mirror mounted high in the corner, one of those round mirrors meant to show blind spots. It usually faced the hallway. That morning, it had been turned slightly toward the free weights. I noticed because I could see myself from an angle I was not used to. Bent over the dumbbell rack, hoodie up, alone in the back room. I should have left then. But I did what people do when they do not want to seem scared. I pretended each strange thing had its own normal explanation. The door probably had a weak latch. The mirror was probably moved by the cleaner. The older man probably slept in. The van was probably nothing. Then I saw the scratches on my locker. I used the same locker every morning because it was close to the bathroom hallway. There were fresh scratches around the lock, thin silver lines in the paint, like someone had tried to pry at it with a key or a small tool. My bag was still inside. Nothing was missing. That almost made it easier to ignore. I convinced myself it was old damage I had not noticed before. While I was doing shoulder presses, I heard a metal clank from the hallway. I had my headphones in, but no music was playing. I sometimes kept them in just to avoid talking to people. The sound came again. A sharp, hollow clink, like someone bumping a mop handle against tile. I took one earbud out. At first, there was only silence, then whispering. Low voices, too quiet to make out. I looked toward the security mirror in the corner. In the curved reflection, I saw someone standing just outside the free weight room. Only part of him was visible. A shoulder, the side of a dark jacket, one hand resting against the wall. I turned around. Whoever it was stepped back, out of sight. I grabbed my phone from the bench and pretended to check messages, trying to look casual. My hand was shaking so badly I almost dropped it. There was no signal. The back of that gym was like that. Thick walls, bad reception. Usually it was just annoying. That morning it felt like the building had swallowed me. I picked up my bag and walked toward the front area like I was done with my workout. Through the glass front doors, I could see the parking lot on the other side of the building. That was not where I had parked, but the front had better lighting, and for a second I thought about going out that way and circling around. Then I saw two men near my car in the back lot, through the side windows. One was looking through the driver's window, the other was crouched near the rear tire. I stopped moving. The white van rolled slowly closer to the side entrance. That was the moment it all connected. They were not watching the gym. They were waiting for me. My routine, my parking spot, my time, my car. I felt my body go cold, but I forced myself not to run, not yet. I turned away from the windows and walked toward the bathroom hallway like I had not noticed anything. I even looked down at my phone, pretending to scroll, though the screen still had no signal. As soon as I rounded the corner, I moved faster. There was an emergency exit near the loading area at the end of the hallway. I knew about it because I had passed it every morning on my way to the bathroom. I thought if I could get out there, I could run along the fence and reach the street. I was almost there when the emergency door opened from the outside. Someone stepped in. I saw a black shoe and the bottom of dark pants before I ducked into the cleaning closet beside the bathrooms. The closet was barely big enough for the mop bucket, shelves of paper towels, and a stack of cleaning chemicals. I pulled the door until it was almost closed, leaving a thin crack. My heart was beating so hard I could feel it in my throat. Two men were in the hallway now. One of them whispered, "He's still inside." The other said, "Don't let him get to the front." Then the first one said, "Wait until he comes out." That was when I understood how much they knew. They knew I came alone. They knew I parked behind the building. They knew I lifted in the back. They knew I used the bathroom before leaving. They had not just noticed me once, they had studied the routine until they knew what I would probably do next. I crouched in the closet trying to type a message to a co-worker named Danny. He worked early too and sometimes parked near my first delivery stop. I sent him my location and typed, "Need help. Men inside gym, call police." It did not send. The little loading circle just kept spinning. I looked up and saw a tiny window high on the wall, almost hidden behind a shelf. It was frosted glass, but I could see a pale strip of morning light through it. I climbed onto the bottom shelf as carefully as I could. The metal bent under my weight and one bottle shifted, but I caught it before it fell. My phone got one bar. The message sent. Right after that, the closet door handle turned. I froze on the shelf. The handle moved again, slower this time. I grabbed a wooden mop handle and shoved it down between the shelf and the door at an angle. When the door opened a few inches, it jammed against the wood. A man outside whispered, "Open the door, bro. We just want to talk." His voice was calm. That made it worse. I stayed silent, both hands gripping the shelf, trying not to breathe loudly. The door pushed again. The mop handle creaked. For one horrible second I thought it would snap. Then the man stopped. I heard footsteps moving away, then another voice from farther down the hall. He called someone. A few seconds later, a horn blasted outside. Then it blasted again and again. Not a small beep, a long, angry truck horn. Danny! The men started moving fast. Shoes squeaked on the tile. The emergency exit slammed open. Someone cursed. Then the hallway went quiet except for the alarmed buzzing of the door. I still did not move. I waited until I heard Danny shouting my name from inside the gym. Only then did I push the mop handle away and crawl out of the closet. My legs were shaking so badly I had to lean against the wall. When we checked my car later, the passenger door handle was damaged. One tire was partly deflated, like someone had let out just enough air to make me stop after driving away. The police checked the gym cameras. The white van had been in the parking lot at the same time for 4 mornings in a row. Worse, one of the men had come into the gym the week before using a guest pass. He had not worked out. He sat near the front desk area for almost 40 minutes and watched me leave. Police later told me similar robberies had happened nearby. The victims were usually people with predictable routines: early workers, gym goers, delivery drivers, people alone before sunrise when the world feels awake enough to be safe but empty enough for no one to notice. I changed gyms after that. I still work out before sunrise because my schedule has not changed, but everything else has. I do not park in the same spot twice, I do not enter through the same door every time, and if I see the same vehicle 2 mornings in a row, I leave. Consistency helped me get healthier, but that morning taught me something I wish I had learned sooner. A routine can build your life. It can also tell the wrong person exactly where to wait.